You think she just liked him. You think it was natural, that she felt a vibe, a spark, and fell into it. But that's not what really happened. What really happened was a mind game she never even saw. She didn't fall in love. She was led, not by force, not by charm, but by strategy. Today, I'll show you how Playboys use psychological tricks to make women chase them to the bedroom without begging, without pressure, and without even saying much. And once you understand this, you'll realize it's not about being the best man. It's about knowing how her emotions work better than she does. Let's begin. The illusion of connection. Playboys don't chase. They create openings. Small, silent ones that feel like connection but are actually control. They'll say just one thing to her. Something vague, something playful, something that's not a compliment, but not an insult either. Your trouble, huh? I can feel it. Now her brain lights up. She's thinking, what did he mean by that? That's step one, curiosity. And curiosity is stronger than attraction. Because once she starts thinking about him, she's already in the loop. And the more she tries to figure it out, the deeper she falls. Emotional push, silent pull. The average guy gives more when he wants more. But the Playboy? He gives a glimpse of presence, then disappears. He makes her laugh, holds eye contact, feels warm. Then suddenly, cold, silent, distracted. He leaves the conversation first, doesn't explain, doesn't follow up. And now her mind starts spinning. Was it something I said? Did I mess it up? Why did the vibe shift? This is not rejection. This is emotional unbalance, and the brain hates it. So what does it do? It chases resolution. It wants the loop to close. It wants the same man who caused the confusion to fix it. Now she's texting him first. Now she's replaying every moment. Now she's the one investing. That's how he hooks her with tension, not words. The power of silence. Here's the part most men struggle to accept. Being available all the time doesn't build connection. It destroys mystery. It lowers your value without you even realizing it. And the more you try to prove your interest with constant check-ins, compliments, and replies, the more invisible you become. Because in her mind, you're no longer a challenge. You're predictable, you're easy, you're always there. And what's always there becomes background noise. She doesn't feel your energy anymore, she expects it. She doesn't look forward to your messages, she skims them. Not because she's cruel or ungrateful, but because you gave too much too soon, without giving her a reason to crave it. Playboys don't operate like that. They understand something most men ignore. Silence speaks louder than words when timed right. Instead of chasing her attention, they create space for her mind to wander. They know when to be present and when to disappear. Not to punish, not to play childish games, but to allow emotional space to grow between them, space she has to close. And that space, it does the work for them. Because silence doesn't just feel like absence. It feels like a question she can't answer. She begins asking herself, was there something in the way I responded? Did I misread his interest? Why do I feel off now that he's gone? These aren't just casual thoughts, they're emotional triggers. The kind that make her start checking her phone for his name. The kind that make her replay that last conversation over and over again. The kind that make her feel like she lost something, even though she never fully had it. And the moment she starts feeling that loss, he's no longer just a man, he's a mental loop. A loop of curiosity, of tension, of unsaid things and unfinished moments. Now her heart isn't chasing closure, it's chasing him. He becomes the man her brain can't file away, because he didn't close the tab. He left it open, unresolved, pulsing in the background of her thoughts. That's how silence becomes a strategy, not a mistake. Because now, when he finally reappears, even with just a playful, effortless line like, "Thought I'd give your brain a break from overthinking me," she smiles. Her guard drops. The tension softens, but the attraction deepens. Because she missed something she didn't even know she could miss. His silence became a feeling, a mystery, a rhythm she couldn't control. And in that moment, he didn't just send a message. He gave her relief from her own mental spiral. That's what most men don't understand. They think women fall for words, for effort, for constant attention. But more often, women fall for what's missing. The mystery, the pull, the space between contact and silence. They fall for the emotional contrast. And the man who understands this doesn't need to talk more, do more, or explain himself. He simply lets absence build weight until the silence feels heavier than presence. That's when his return doesn't just get noticed. It gets felt. It gets remembered. Because now, every message isn't just a line of text. It's a reward, a hit of emotional resolution. And she'll want more. Not because he forced her, not because he begged, but because he gave her something rare in today's world. Space to miss him. And once a woman feels that space, once she realizes how deeply silence can make her feel, she'll never look at constant attention the same way again. She'll chase not the man, but the relief of feeling him again. Suggestive power. There's a hidden layer of attraction that most men never see. Not because it's complex, but because it's subtle. It lives in the pauses between words, in the questions left unanswered, in the tension that lingers when nothing has been fully explained. Most men rush to speak. They want to be understood. They want to be clear. They believe that being direct is the way to a woman's heart. Say how you feel. Show her you care. Don't leave room for confusion. But here's the truth. Confusion isn't the enemy of attraction, it's the fuel. Playboys understand this with precision. They don't chase clarity. They don't flood her with obvious compliments or safe affirmations. They use something far more powerful, suggestive communication. They say just enough to spark a thought, just enough to stir emotion, and then they pull back, leaving her mind to fill in the blanks. Because here's what most men don't know. The female mind doesn't fall for what's explained, it falls for what's felt, then wondered about. When a man says something direct, like, "You're beautiful," her mind hears it, appreciates it, and moves on. But when he says something like, "You walk into a room like you've already made peace with every part of yourself," that's rare. Now she's not just reacting, she's wondering, what did that mean? Is he impressed? Is he challenging me? Is he flirting? Or is this something deeper? That wondering turns into replaying. That replaying turns into emotional investment. And suddenly, he's not just a man she met. He's a mystery her heart can't file away. This is the genius of suggestive power. It's not manipulation, it's restraint. It's knowing that leaving space in a sentence gives her imagination room to breathe. And the moment her imagination gets involved, he's already in her thoughts, even when he's not in her presence. He might say, "You've got a way of looking at people like you already know the story they're not telling." Or, "I can't tell if you're genuinely kind or just dangerously good at pretending." Statements like this don't just land, they stick. Because they're layered. They hit both confidence and vulnerability at the same time. They pull her out of autopilot and into a moment of self-awareness. Now she's not just talking to a man, she's responding to a mirror. One that reflects parts of herself she's not used to seeing exposed. She starts wondering, why did that get under my skin? What does he see in me that others don't? Why am I still thinking about that one comment hours later? Because he didn't describe her, he framed her. And now, she's trying to decode the frame to control how he perceives her. And in doing so, she starts chasing emotional control, not because he asked for it, but because he placed the emotional spotlight on her and walked away. Most men never reach this level of engagement because they're always trying to prove themselves. They talk too much. They reveal too soon. They try to win her over with volume when what actually works is silence, delivered with precision. The playboy doesn't fight for space in the conversation. He creates it. He gives her just enough to spark emotion and never enough to satisfy it. And the human mind, it hates emotional loose ends. So it loops. It obsesses. It starts rewriting the conversation, imagining alternate meanings, alternate endings. That's why the memory of him grows more powerful after he leaves. Because she wasn't just left without closure, she was left with possibility. And possibility is more addictive than certainty. Think about your favorite movies, the ones that ended just before you got full resolution. The scenes that left questions hanging. The lyrics that could mean love or loss, power or pain. Those stick with you because they don't hand you answers. They hand you yourself and let you make sense of it. That's what he gives her. Not validation, not flattery, but space to interpret, space to feel, space to wonder. And because she's the one filling in the blanks, she feels ownership of the connection. She's not being told how to feel. She's creating her own emotional reality around him. And that's a reality she will defend. That's a feeling she will chase. Even if nothing was ever fully said. Even if he never made a move. Even if he only lingered for a short time. Because attraction isn't built in certainty, it's built in the craving for resolution. So when she says, "I don't know what it is about him, I just can't stop thinking about him," what she's really saying is, "He left a question open inside me and I can't stop trying to answer it." That's why she calls it chemistry. Even when nothing physical happened, even when the conversations were short, because it's not about what he gave her, it's about what he made her feel about herself. He gave her a moment that couldn't be explained, a look that felt like it saw through her, but didn't tell her what it saw, a sentence that sounded like it meant something more, but never revealed what that meaning was. And that open loop, it haunts, it lingers, it makes her check her phone, replay the words, wonder what might have happened if he stayed longer, because she's not chasing a man. She's chasing the feeling his silence left behind. The curiosity his mystery created. The version of herself that only came alive when she stood in his shadow trying to figure him out. That's the power of suggestion. Not forceful, not loud. Just carefully placed ambiguity that lets her imagination do all the work. And in attraction, the mind does not fall for what's explained. It falls for what it can't stop replaying. That's what Playboys master. Not charm, not lines, but mental gravity. And once she's caught in that loop, she's not falling for him. She's falling for the mirror he gave her, and the mystery he left behind. The exit strategy. The most powerful move a playboy makes isn't loud. It's not made in anger. It's not marked by drama. It doesn't come with final words or explanations. It's quiet, subtle, but devastatingly timed. He disappears, not because he's overwhelmed, not because he lost interest, and certainly not because he's unsure. He leaves because the moment is perfect, calculated, strategic, precise. He's been paying attention, watching the emotional rhythm shift, noticing how her eyes linger just a second longer, how her texts arrive sooner, not just in response, but out of desire, how her tone softens, how her walls, the invisible ones she didn't even realize she built, begin to fall without resistance. She's not just laughing at his jokes anymore, she's opening up her world. The things she hides from everyone else, she starts giving him in pieces. Her childhood fears, her biggest failures, the things she regrets the most but never talks about. The dream she had when she was 15 and still secretly hopes might come true. And it's not just her words. It's in the way she looks at him, with trust, with expectation. With that soft hope, women don't show unless they feel safe. She starts imagining a future, not because he promised her one, but because he made her feel like she could finally believe in one. She pictures what it would be like to travel together, to wake up next to him, to call him when she's anxious, and know he'll calm her down. She doesn't even realize she's building this world in her mind, but he sees it, and that's when he leaves. Not completely, not in a way that lets her label it as rejection. He doesn't block her. He doesn't lash out. He just pulls back. The messages get shorter. The response time gets longer. The warmth cools. His presence, once consistent and grounding, becomes unpredictable. It feels like he's slowly slipping away, and she can't understand why. At first, she tries to explain it to herself. Maybe he's just stressed. Maybe work got busy. Maybe he's scared of how fast things are going. But deep down, her body already knows. Something shifted. And now, she's left waiting, not for a text, but for emotional resolution. The rhythm they shared, the emotional current has collapsed, and the silence that follows doesn't just exist in her phone. It lives inside her. She feels it in her chest, in her stomach, in the sudden stillness of a space that used to feel alive. And the cruelest part? There was no ending, no argument, no goodbye, just interruption. The emotional train she was riding didn't arrive at a station. It got derailed halfway through the journey, right as she started to surrender. And now, all that emotional momentum has nowhere to go. She's stuck with it. The vulnerability, the excitement, the version of herself that she brought out only for him now left exposed, with no one there to receive it. And so, she starts asking questions that hurt more than they heal. Did I imagine everything? Was he ever really that into me? Was I just convenient until he got bored? But she doesn't really believe those questions, because she felt the connection, the way he looked at her, the way their energies synced, the way she felt more like herself when she was with him than with anyone else. And that's what makes his disappearance so haunting. He didn't just take himself away. He took her reflection with him. Because the version of her that showed up with him, the one who felt safe, expressive, alive, she doesn't know where that version went. He didn't just leave a void. He left a mirror shattered in the middle of an emotional high. And when that happens, you don't just miss the man. You miss who you were around him. That's what separates the average guy from the playboy. The average guy leaves after the first awkward conversation. He leaves when she pushes back. He leaves when he feels rejected. But the playboy? He waits until the moment she's emotionally ready to give him everything. And then he vanishes. Just enough to be felt. Just enough to break her rhythm. Just enough to keep her looping on what almost happened. And that is what sticks. Because what hurts the most in life isn't what ends. It's what almost began. The kiss that didn't happen. The "I love you" she never got to say. The weekend they planned that never arrived. The version of herself that was just starting to bloom, now left with nowhere to go. That's why he stays in her mind. Not because of how much time they spent, but because of how abruptly it stopped. She's walking around with an unfinished chapter, and no matter how many times she tells herself to move on, her heart is still waiting for the story to end. But there is no ending, just silence. And the longer that silence stretches, the louder the echo becomes. That's the brilliance of the exit strategy. He didn't close the door. He left it half open. And now she keeps checking to see if he's still there. Not because she wants him, but because she needs closure for a version of herself that never got to speak. She's not comparing other men to him. She's comparing them to the feeling he created, the hope he stirred, the high she never got to land from. And when a story ends, you mourn it. But when it never ends, you chase it, even if only in memory. Because stories with no endings don't fade. They grow louder every time silence takes their place. It was never about him. Here's the brutal, beautiful truth that most people avoid, not because they don't know it, but because it forces them to admit something uncomfortable. She's not addicted to him, not his appearance, not his voice, not even his presence. What she's really addicted to is who she becomes around him. In his energy, she remembers the version of herself that she buried long ago. The girl who once laughed without shrinking, who spoke without scripting, who felt everything so deeply that even silence was loud. He doesn't give her those traits. They were always hers. He simply reminds her they exist. And for a moment, fleeting but vivid, she feels like herself again. Not the filtered version she shows the world, not the safe version she learned to play, but the raw, alive, real one. It starts small, a look that lingers a little too long, a sentence layered in meaning, said with a smirk and silence. A question that isn't about facts, but feelings. She leans in, she opens up, she shines. And here's the twist. She thinks she's falling for him, but what she's really falling for is the version of herself he activates. He doesn't do much, and that's the key. He doesn't overwhelm her with affection. He doesn't try to prove himself. He just makes space for her fire to rise. He listens in a way that says, "I see you, even the parts you don't show anyone else." That gaze, that quiet acknowledgement, it awakens her. It says, "You can be more here, more playful, more bold, more vulnerable, more chaotic, more free." And when a woman tastes freedom, real emotional freedom, she doesn't forget it. Now she's not texting to chase attention. She's texting to chase herself. The bright, magnetic, emotional version of her that only seems to show up when he's nearby. That's why the chemistry feels different. It's not about the surface. It's about the mirror, because that's what he really gives her, a reflection of her unfiltered self. Not the one shaped by approval, not the one guarded by fear, but the raw inner pulse of who she is when no one's watching. And when he steps away, as he always does, it's not just him that disappears. It's that version of her too. That's why it hurts. That's why she says, "I don't know why I can't let him go. I know he's not good for me, but I still check my phone." It just felt different. It did. Because the relationship wasn't just about him. It was about her emotional rebirth in his presence. He becomes the symbol of that awakening. He becomes the gatekeeper of the feeling, not because he forced it, but because he witnessed it. And the more mysterious he remains, the more sacred that reflection feels. If he had broken it down with labels, if he had defined everything, if he had played it safe and clear, he would have become ordinary. And ordinary is forgettable. But mystery becomes sacred. He never says, "I changed you." He simply stands there, quiet and still, while she blooms in the space between his silence and her desire to be seen. And that bloom, she craves it, not because of who he is, but because of what he unlocked. This is why logic cannot sever the tie. Her friends point out the red flags. She agrees. They call him toxic. She nods. They remind her how little he gave. And still, she goes back, because they're trying to argue facts, while she's still clinging to a feeling that came from inside her, but which she now believes only he can give her access to again. This is why she compares every new man to him, even the good ones, because none of them hold the same mirror. None of them bring her back to that emotional, high-definition version of herself, the one who didn't second-guess, didn't censor, didn't shrink. And that version? She misses her. Not him, but the tragedy? She doesn't know the difference. So she thinks she's chasing him. And really, she's chasing the glow she felt in his presence. That's the power he holds. Not over her body, over her memory. He becomes the unfinished sentence in her favorite chapter. The soundtrack to her emotional rebirth. The flicker that made her feel alive again. He's not the drug. He's the trigger. And until she learns to create that version of herself without him, until she realizes she can access that emotional freedom without needing a mirror to reflect it, she will continue to return to the texts, to the memories, to the what-ifs. He doesn't chase. He doesn't explain. He doesn't even try, because he knows he's not the center. He's the switch. He doesn't need to control her. He just needs to remind her of the feeling, then walk away. And she'll chase the echo, again, and again, and again. That's why she says, there's just something about him. That something was always her. He just showed her what she looked like, lit up, then dimmed the light and left her wanting more. That is the real game. Not pickup lines, not manipulation, not pretending. Just the deep awareness that the strongest emotional hooks aren't built by being everything she wants, but by helping her remember everything she forgot she could be. And once you understand that, you'll realize she never loved him. She loved herself, in his shadow. Wake up call. So if you're sitting there asking yourself, why did she choose him, the one who gave her the least? Why did she chase someone who barely showed up while I gave her consistency, attention, care? You're not weak for wondering. You're not foolish for feeling confused. You're human. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You were speaking to her mind. He was speaking to her emotions. You were offering peace. He was giving her a storm with just enough sunshine to keep her chasing the weather. And in the world of attraction, emotions beat logic every time. You brought her flowers. He brought her curiosity. You asked how her day was. He made her wonder what he was thinking. You opened your heart. He opened a loop in her mind she still hasn't closed. And that's why she kept checking her phone for him, not you. He didn't steal her. He didn't trick her. He simply played a game that most men don't even realize exists, the emotional game, where timing matters more than talking, where silence creates more tension than praise, where less is actually more when it's done with precision. You see, most men try to win her with proof. Proof they're loyal. Proof they're reliable. Proof they're not like the others. But she's not falling for proof. She's falling for feeling. And Playboys know exactly how to deliver that feeling, not constantly, but strategically. Not by lying, not by overperforming, but by understanding one core truth. Women don't fall in love with effort. They fall in love with how they feel in your presence. That's what he gave her, a feeling. Unpredictable, mysterious, intoxicating. The highs were high, the lows were uncertain, and somewhere in the imbalance, her mind got hooked. And you played safe. You thought that being good, loyal, and available was enough. But you were present without being felt. And that's the real gap. You see, this isn't about becoming someone fake. This isn't about turning into a manipulator. This is about waking up to reality, understanding that emotional rhythm, not moral checklist, is what builds early attraction. He didn't win because he was better. He won because he was aware, because he understood the psychology behind what makes her feel pulled in. While you were focused on saying the right things, he was focused on making her feel something she couldn't explain. Now here you are, feeling confused, maybe angry, maybe hurt. But don't let that turn into bitterness. Let it turn into clarity. This isn't about becoming colder. It's about becoming smarter, more composed, more emotionally calibrated, because the game is already happening around you every day. In your group chats, in your workplace, in her DMs. It doesn't matter if you agree with it. It doesn't matter if you think it's unfair. It's real, and the only men who lose are the ones who refuse to see it. But now, you've seen behind the curtain. You've seen how emotional tension pulls harder than praise, how silence can seduce more than compliments, how unpredictability can feel like depth, and how women chase the feeling, not the man. You have two choices now. You can ignore it. Keep playing with your heart wide open and your awareness shut down. Keep thinking, if I just give more, she'll see my value. Or you can wake up. You can learn the rhythm. You can understand the emotional game without losing your integrity. You can master the power of timing, silence, and presence. You can become a man who doesn't just get her attention, but makes her feel something she doesn't want to lose. Because here's the truth. Attraction is not won with effort. It's created with energy. Controlled, centered, intentional energy. And the man who understands that doesn't need to chase. He leads the rhythm and watches the world move to his beat. So now you decide, will you keep dancing to a tune someone else is playing? Or will you learn the music and become the one who sets the pace? If this didn't just entertain you, if it hit something deep, if it made you pause and think, wait, I've felt this before, I've lived this, then don't just scroll past like it's just another video. Do something with it, because information without action is just regret waiting to happen. First, tap like, not just to help the algorithm, but to signal that more men like you, deserve to hear the truth behind what's actually happening in the dating world. You know how rare it is to find content that cuts past the noise. So if this gave you clarity, don't just consume, support it. Second, send this to that one friend. Yeah, him. The guy who keeps getting ghosted. The one who keeps texting, over-explaining, over-investing, and still gets left on red. He's not weak. He's just unaware. And no one ever gave him the full picture. Until now. This could be the thing that wakes him up, that shows him it's not about trying harder. It's about understanding how the game is actually played. Third, subscribe. Because this isn't a one-time revelation. This is just the first layer. You want to know how power works in relationships, how silence bends emotions, how presence can be engineered, not begged for. You want the real blueprint without fluff, gimmicks, or pickup artist garbage. That's what we're building here. Raw truth, clean insight, stoic psychology. For men who are tired of guessing, for men who want clarity, not confusion, and for men who are done being told, just be nice, just wait, just hope. That hasn't worked. You know it. I know it. You've watched others win with half the effort, not because they were better, but because they understood the emotional framework. That's what you're learning now. That's what you'll master if you stick around. Because this isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about uncovering the version of you that knows how to move differently. The version of you that doesn't chase but attracts. The one who doesn't react but leads. You've already started seeing the truth. Now don't walk away from it. You have two options. Go back to what's familiar, or lean in and never again say, I didn't know why she left. The men who win, they're not the loudest, not the richest, not the smoothest. They're the ones who study the rhythm, then move through the world in sync with it. So like, share, subscribe, and become the man who doesn't just understand the game, but sets the rules. This is just the beginning. Lead the rhythm, or keep chasing the echo.